Thank you. No one else said anything. Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hi, everyone.
Oh, no,
We
you're
made
right,
different
you're right,
choices.
you're right. You're right.
My name is Ronald Young Jr. I'm an audio producer, host, and storyteller from Washington, D.C. I have a show called Leaving the Theater, which, if you have your phone in your hand, you can subscribe right now. Great podcast.
Even should subscribe right now.
Thank you. And introduce yourself.
I'm also Ronald Young Jr. My name is Rollie Williams. I have a YouTube series called Climate Town, which is a comedy series about climate change. And I know how that sounds, but I promise we work so hard to make it funny. It's like I pitch it as it's like if Last Week with John Oliver had no budget. That's what we are. So we're like going around, we're like stealing shots. We'll go up to a gas station and do like a whole bit, and then they'll like run out and be like, "You can't film here, get out of here." And so we'll run away, but we got the shot. We got the shot, so we use it.
So obviously we're going to be talking about humor and using humor and levity to approach complex issues, specifically climate change. So we're going to talk through it a little bit. We'll talk a little bit about how Rollie got here, and we'll talk a bit about using humor as a tool. And I believe we'll have some Q&A at the end if we have time. We'll make time. We'll make sure we have some Q&A at the end, and that'll be it. We'll get to eating moon burgers and drinking drinks.
I will say, Ron is a spectacularly interesting dude, so I'm probably going to also fire back some questions at him. So
We didn't talk about this.
we did not talk about this, but I think he can handle it. He's
All right.
has multiple podcasts. So just close your eyes if you got to answer.
So let's start with you did a little bit of description, but give me tell me a bit about how you got here. How did we get to you being on YouTube, all of that? Give me an origin story.
Sure, yeah. I moved to New York to pursue comedy, and at one point are we allowed to swear on this thing? Is that Russ? Are we allowed? I really don't know. Okay, everybody's yes? Okay. All right. So, like the shittiest theater you can imagine, like in a basement, the walls are like leaky stone. So like this terrible theater was like, hey, we have an open time slot. Do you want to like put a show up? And anytime someone's like, do you want to put a show up? I say yes. I didn't have any good ideas, but like, I'll make something up and it'll be bad, but whatever. No one will see it, so it's fine. And so I was looking for a show, and I was at the Barnes & Noble, and there was Al Gore's book, which he had a book called An Inconvenient Truth, the book, for which he won a bunch of awards. Actually, Al Gore won an Oscar for the movie, a Grammy for the spoken word Inconvenient Truth book.
Yeah.
And an Emmy for a TV show that he produced. So he is one Tony short of an EGOT.
Yeah. He just needs to make it a musical, and he got it.
He could do it, man. Al Gore's got spice in him. So I saw this book, and I thought, it would be funny if there was if Al Gore had a sort of I Told You So tour, where he was like, see, I fucking called it. Climate change is happening. You didn't believe me. And maybe he'd be like a little drunk, and maybe he'd be like a little bit of a swinger with Tipper Gore and like, weird polyamory. It was Brooklyn, and it was like, they like that kind of thing. It was gonna be fun. And so they picked up the show, and then we ran that show a couple times, and I played Al Gore. I portrayed. I never nailed the accent.
Like wig, all that. Like how were you?
Yeah, it's like wig and suit, and that was it. That was the whole effort. I had a little bit of an accent, but it wasn't good, and it never got better. I did the show for 3 years, never once got better. Probably got worse as it went. But the show got picked up, and I was having comedians on the show, and it was just a sketch show, like a talk show kind of thing, and then I got picked up at this theater that was like, okay, you can only perform here if you're a little bit educational, because that's going to be our thing. We're going to be like intelligent nightlife. We're going to be like serving drinks, but also that's going to be how we're going to differentiate ourselves from the 5,000 other shitty comedy theaters that there are in New York. And so I got some real climate scientists to come on the show, and they were all really, really good and funny and engaging. It was really fun. But we'd go to the bar afterwards, and then we'd be drinking and having a good time, and inevitably we would ask, like, oh, we're going to be fine from climate change, right? Like, it's not really that, we're going to be okay, right? And every single climate scientist was just like, no. No, we are not. We are not prepared. we really got to tackle this thing.
So wait, before we go on, when you're doing this show, like you're doing the Al Gore version, you're bringing on climate scientists, was there any point here that you thought you were making an impact, or were you just having a good time?
Not really. I was having a great time, but I mean, people were coming up to me, and every show was about the various aspects of the climate crisis, and I would be researching very deeply and doing like monologue jokes that were kind of like vaguely climate themed. But I wouldn't say I was like having a massive impact. People would walk up and say, "Hey, you made me think about this differently," and like I'm gonna join a group or something. But like I think it was pretty minimal. It was more like kind of cathartic and kind of fun.
So at this point, it really was just about being funny than it was about anything else.
Yeah, I mean, it always like it was a comedy. It's a comedy first. Like I think that's maybe one thing that I really need to hold on to and remember is like like you want to make it funny and then accessible and educational if there's time almost, but like going the other way around, I think it's just like it gets a little cringy if it's just like I've got a degree from Harvard and let me tell a funny joke about climate change. It just doesn't work. I don't have a degree from Harvard, by the way. And so that was the show kind of went like that. Eventually it became clear that like we had enough climate scientists on being like, we are fucked. And I was like, okay, I can read the writing on the wall. So I quit my job, went to grad school for climate science and policy. And I was like, man,
Hold on, let's pause. Did y'all hear that? You quit your, like, tell me about the decision process going from quit your job to I'm going back to school. And how old are you at this point?
I was like 29 maybe.
Okay. So you're in the grad school.
Maybe I'm 31. Maybe I'm 31 at this point. So I'm 34 now, and this was like 3 years ago.
This is like a drastic life change.
Yeah, well, I quit the job that I didn't like. I still had like a little freelance job on the side.
Gotcha. Okay.
But so I was like, and at the time Biden was like, I'm gonna zero out all college debt, and I was like, I'm making a $70,000 bet. Biden will be right. And it's looking like that was a bad bet, to be totally honest. I haven't asked the Supreme Court justices, but they seem like they're pretty deeply not gonna do that anymore, which is a bummer. So I got into Columbia, but like master's degree programs are just like trying to get people's money, so it's not that big of a deal.
That was a hot take.
I mean, look, sorry, is anyone a master's degree program here? No, people are not, whatever, it doesn't matter. So I got into Columbia, was taking these classes and just thought like, wow, I'm gonna make this show so good. 2020 is gonna be my year, baby. And then like immediately every theater closes down and slams shut. And then, to answer the question you asked me 45 minutes ago, I was like, well, I could do a YouTube version of this and not be Al Gore, be regular me. And so I started a show called Climate Town, and then I had been an editor. Man, this is all over the place. I'm sorry. I should have really sketched this out better in my brain. I'm a video editor, so I knew how to edit, so I edited together and started making episodes, and then the episodes started to do pretty well, and that's how I got here today, I think. So thank you for the question. I'll be going.
Take me back to your first episode. So you're going from like you have the show that's live, and you're going from doing that to like turning it into something that's a little bit more consumable, more shareable. Talk to me about like what it looked like to make that very first episode.
Yeah, so it was the pandemic, kind of the height of the first wave of the pandemic, and I was living in a one-room apartment with my girlfriend, and it was close quarters. It was too close quarters. And so I was like, I'm just going to leave and go outside and film an episode. And then, so I like left, and I just went around town and had a little tripod set up, and then I needed a specific shot, so I had to like call her and have her film me doing a thing. And I wasn't nailing the take, and it took like 3 or 4 takes, and she's just like, hey, you got 2 more takes, and then I gotta go, because I got actual things I need to do today. So she shot some of it, I shot the rest of it, and then edited it together. What was the question? I'm sorry.
Tell me about the first time that you.
Oh yeah, that was it.
You're
Yeah,
answering
so it was extremely haphazard and like poorly planned out. I had the script kind of locked in, but like a stray cat came up and started like messing with the script and like clawing at the script, and we kind of incorporated this cat into the episode. It was weird. It was a first episode, so we were working some bugs out. And then yeah, so everything kind of came together, and then except I didn't film one of the parts, so I filmed myself editing the video, like, and then I would like, oh, I forgot this part, so I kind of filmed it into the camera, and then that kind of became a trope of the series.
When do you think that you went from, just a guy putting out these videos to, this is now something? Was there an inflection point?
Yeah. Oh no! Yeah.
Like, because there's always an inflection point between like when we're making and putting out content versus like now people are saying, oh, I listened, this is great, or I saw that one episode, you start to get that feedback, and then you see that big spike. So talk to me a little bit about when you go from like, editing with your cat to.
Not my cat. I do not claim ownership of this cat. I don't know how the cat's doing. It was I put out 3 episodes that were didn't do very well at all, and then the 4th episode kind of popped off on Reddit, and it 200,000 25-year-old men were like, good video, and it just like blew the views up, which was really nice. Like, if you're gonna have 250 or 200,000 25-year-old men feel a way about you, it's good that it's positive, because they are a tough crowd sometimes. So.
Was there any point in that point when it's starting to blow up that you start to feel some sort of responsibility to your audience? Because you're talking about being funny and putting the funny first, but now like you've put out something, and now the minute you put out a piece of content, people now have expectations of you. And so how do you meet those expectations moving forward?
Oh, I think I just don't meet the expectation. I guess I am sure there's some element of like a responsibility of like being correct and not putting out like wrong information, but mostly I'm just trying to like make a video that I won't be embarrassed to watch myself or like show people. Like I can send it and not be like, if they don't answer within a week, I think I can't talk to this person again in my life. You know? Like, I think it's just about like trying to make a good, funny video that's correct. And that's like hard enough for me to do that I don't really think about any other part of it.
So let's talk about the funny, because you say we have to put the funny first. What do you think, is there anything specific about climate change that you think lends itself to humor?
I don't think so. No, I don't. I mean, it's devastating. It's like, it's the biggest problem the world is facing, and everyone is gonna deal with it, and it's the poorest people are gonna fare, the worst and bear the biggest brunt, and they have the least to do with it. There's nothing funny about it, I think, inherently.
So then what my follow-up question is immediately. Then, if there's nothing funny about it, then how are you doing what you're doing?
Oh yeah, I mean, there's nothing like inherently funny in the fact that so many people are suffering, but I think there are enough like bad actors in the climate space, like all the fossil fuel companies, real estate companies, shipping, aviation, various governments that are like handing out subsidies to fossil fuel organizations. There are a lot of people who are doing bad things that they know are wrong and morally corrupt, and they're terrible at covering it up. Mm-hmm. So like oil companies like had to release thousands of pages of documents. And people went through them and are like, oh, you knew about this in like the 60s and 70s, and like had a meeting where a scientist named Dr. James Black, I can't remember exactly, but I think it's Dr. James Black, was like, by the way, climate change definitely happening, big problem. I realize I've just been focused over here, and there's a whole half a room over here. I'm so sorry. I'm gonna kind of crane. I did not mean to neglect anyone over here. So like they're just bad dudes who made buffoonish moves all over the place, and there's something about like just really trying to nail him to the wall by like, here's a document where you said this thing, and then here's an interview where you said this opposite thing 70 times. And it's like kind of funny that, oh, look at this, you were lying and you knew about it, you know. But you could dress it up and make it a little funnier.
What would stop you from, because I feel like everything you're talking about, we've seen investigative journalism pieces, we've seen, folks use shame kind of as a way to do that. You're still using shame, but you're doing it in a way that, like, I was watching your fast fashion video, you're doing it in a way that, like, I'm chuckling throughout, but you're dropping these bombs in there just kind of like systematically, just over and over again. What do you think it is about it being funny rather than emotional, even though it is kind of emotional, but what do you think about it being funny forward makes it key?
Yeah, I think it's just like, you know that adage, like when you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail? Mm-hmm. Like I just spent a lot of time and took a lot of UCB classes, and like I only have one thing that I've done for 10 years, and it's like try to make stuff funny. So like that's my go-to. It's not necessarily the best method of communication, but it's the only thing that I've ever like known how to do, so that's how I do it. But I also think you get past people's initial like political barrier or personal barrier a little bit if you're leading with a joke. I think it like sort of like just kind of creeps through this little force field, and if you can do it right and if you can do it in a really funny way, I think it kind of like it hits a different part of their brain, and maybe a part that's a little more willing to consider it if they didn't already agree with it. So I think there's like, I'm sure you guys can remember any time like you've seen like a comedian tell a joke that you weren't like immediately on board with, but they kind of won you over. I think there's some power in like, okay, you know, like we don't have to be serious about it. Let's like get a little comedic about it. And once you sort of like call people in comedically, I think maybe it's a little easier to convey what you're trying to say.
Do you ever feel like you're talking to people that agree with you only, or do you feel like you do enough to reach people who don't agree with you?
If you read a lot of the comments below the video, people who don't agree with me are watching it. And they are not psyched to have watched a 27-minute video on the history of the coal industry and be like, yeah, well, yeah, those buttons on your shirt are plastic. Plastic comes from oil. I guess you're a hypocrite and walk around naked now.
Yeah.
Which is a weird conclusion for them to want to draw.
Yeah.
I want to see you naked after this. Like, what? What is the line there? Yeah. So I think it's like, it's certainly being watched by people who don't agree with it initially. And I think probably there are more people, you know, the Yale Climate Communication Center comes out with these surveys every year. The amount of people who are like straight up climate change deniers in America is like 9% or something. And I think it feels like it's probably way more because we have made so little progress in the climate policy world. But I think it's mostly like people who just kind of are agnostic or like haven't decided to drop into the information. They probably know it's depressing and they know they don't really want to get into it. So they're like, I'm going to avoid it. And so I think what I'm hoping is that like I'm hitting that demographic where people who are like just haven't really engaged with it in any serious way, where maybe they're getting a little more of the material, more of the information than they would have otherwise because it's a little funnier. It's sort of like Trojan horsing the information in on like some jokes.
Do you think that your own journey is like your own journey to understanding and fighting against climate change? Is this the journey you're describing, or was there a moment before you even started doing humor where you're just like, I think I need to be more invested in this? Do you have like a Paul on the road to Damascus moment?
Man, I wish I knew my Bible stuff. I was locked into that question all the way until you said that. Paul on the road to Damascus.
Yeah, well,
he was walking to Damascus. He's walking to Damascus.
He's on a horse.
He's on a horse?
He's on a horse.
Okay, and he's like, I should not ride this horse.
He was on his way to persecute some people. He's knocked off the horse and blinded. He's sent to Ananias' house in order to rehabilitate him.
The Bible is metal. He's going to go persecute people?
He's on his way to persecute some
Okay,
people.
he jumps on this horse, and
He
he's
jumps
like,
on
oh shit, it's 9. I'm late to persecute these people.
Yes, he's on his
Hurry
way
up,
to persecute.
perspicacity.
Yeah, he's on his way.
And then a snake.
No, God knocks him off his horse.
God knocks him off his horse?
Yeah, I can't,
I
can't tell you this
his
story.
brain.
The point is,
Happening? Okay,
did you have was there some sort of epiphany?
God knocked me off my horse
Yes.
at some point?
I regret this analogy so much.
I want to know everything about the Bible now.
Yeah. Did you have some moment of epiphany or clarity that pushed you into this?
I think most of my epiphany came from just like becoming more familiar with the information. And I think that happened when I was, like 1 or 2 shows deep into this run, and I ran out of jokes and I ran out of material. And so I was like, oh, I guess I'll just like read some articles about this. And every single thing that I read was like, oh, they're all saying the same thing. And that thing is that we are not paying close enough attention to it. And every article is dire, and also like it kind of ends with like, but I guess we'll see. And it's like, oh, so there's nobody who's got their eye on, I mean, like not nobody, but like the people, no one is coming to save us, basically. Like I think that maybe that was the moment when I realized like, there's not gonna be someone who's like, all right, you guys have messed this up enough, we're gonna fix this up. It's like, that's not happening. There is no political mechanism in America to make that happen. That is not, like, to be saved, we must save ourselves. And I think that maybe happened at, 2 in the morning, trying to like put a joke together or something.
It reminds
And I got blinded.
Okay, I knew this.
And I was walking around.
You don't know the rest of the story, so you
And then I
can't
started
even-
feeling a horse. Whose horse is this? I said. And God said, it's your horse. Take care of this horse.
That's okay. We'll talk offline about the rest of the story.
Like I think this is a pretty good story, though.
So Adam McKay made a movie called Don't Look Up, and when he talks about writing that movie, he talks about, it's an analogy for climate change.
What? I did know that.
So when he talks about making this movie, he talks about like being up in the middle of the night, reading about this, freaking out completely, being full of fear, all of that. And then he writes this movie, and that's kind of his move. I think it starts with a bit of pessimism, but you have to be a bit of an optimist to be doing the work that you're doing. Otherwise, you wouldn't do it. Do you agree with that? Do you think you're optimistic about this, or how do you feel about this generally?
Yeah, I think I'm optimistic. I think there's like this thing that I always think about is like if we just like woke up tomorrow and had a different way of thinking, we could change everything. Like within the span of 10 years, we went from like gay marriage was illegal to like if you said you wanted gay marriage to be illegal, it's political suicide. And we're like there's like ratcheting back a little bit, which is psychotic, but we can obviously change our minds in a rapid way, and we can change policy in a rapid way, and we can adopt new mindsets. So I'm optimistic that we can do something. I don't know what it's going to take. I don't know what's going to knock us all off our collective horse, basically.
Okay, I like it. You landed the plane well there. Do you think, like I've noticed you're saying you're optimistic that we can. Is there a part of you that says we will?
Yeah, I think so. So there's also no, like, there are a lot of points of no return, which means there's actually no one point of no return. Every second that we, like, fail to act, another species of, like, Arctic tern dies out. And every second that we do act, another, like, I can't think of a good other animal, another jaguar is saved. There is a sliding scale, and the more we slide, the more we lose, but we have time to stop the slide and recombobulate ourselves.
Do you think that there's a difference between, I think a lot of people, especially online in the comment sections, there's a lot of folks that are trolls. They just jump on there, they start saying a lot of sarcasm, just to fight against whatever they're saying. Sure. How do you distinguish yourself from just being a troll. You know
Another
what I mean? Yeah.
Well, I am $70,000 in debt, so that is one way. No, I think I don't know. I think trolls maybe are flights of fancy and like, oh, they're in it for just to like rile people up and do the attention. I think, and also I think trolls flit around really quickly between a lot of different topics. So I think I'm maybe more of a long distance troller, you know, where like I just like have one topic and I really try to hone in on it. But also like it's more important to be right than to have a video out, for instance. So like I got actually my executive producer Ben is in the audience tonight. Ben is like, when's the next episode coming out? You know, like what's the time? And we'll have like scrapped 2 pages of a script because we talked to a second expert who said, oh, actually, I don't think it's quite that way. I don't think like the coal industry broke down in that particular way. So we'll go back to the drawing board and like there's no like posting schedule. A video is posted when it's done. So yeah, we have to beat right, and I think that's like maybe trolls are slightly more liberal with their understanding of the truth, I will say.
In being that each video has to be funny as you're posting it up, have you ever done a script, you had done something, put it together, and when you started, performing it or like actually going through it, you're like, this isn't funny?
Yeah, like every single one of them. Like all of them. Seriously, it's like it feels like I'm performing dentistry on myself. Sometimes. Yeah. It's like I wrote that. That sucks, you know.
Yeah.
So we'll like punch it up on the day, and you can do a lot in the edit bay. You can dress it up a lot, and you can always like hard cut to another clip of you, or like do a callback joke, or cut. My big trick now is like if I ever totally beefed a joke, I can cut to the edit bay of me editing that and be like, oh man, I don't know what I was thinking, like delete that, and then move on to the next thing. So it's like, oh, it stays in because we can't go and reshoot it because like, we have no money. So, but we can like comment on it as we're moving through it, and I think like some of the humor comes from there too. But certainly, like I'm every rough draft video that I see, I'm just like, wow, this is the time when they find out that I'm actually not funny, and like, they delete my YouTube channel and run me out of town on a rail.
Do you ever like?
That's a thing, right? That's like they put somebody on a train and they make them leave. Okay, I'm getting some now. Okay. Or nice, nice.
Do you ever like? How long does it take you to do a video typically?
It's like 6 weeks usually. We're trying to get it down to about a month, but it's like we're doing multiple videos at a time, so we're researching for about a full month. We're talking to experts, we're talking to journalists, and then we write the script and we clear it with a couple of other experts, and then we'll shoot it in 2 days or so, sometimes 3. And then from then on, I'll just edit. You can. It's totally fine. No problem. But yeah, I totally get it. Me neither. No sweat. If you gotta bounce, no problem at all. I will not feel bad. In fact, I gotta go. I'm gonna no. Yeah. So and then it's like a couple of weeks of late nights, early mornings. Like we got an office, which is really fun. We got like a kind of a cheap office in a subway desert in Brooklyn, where it's like everyone's walking into the office. There's no trains going there, and so I'm there until like 2 and 3 in the morning some nights, and I'll get back up and go at 8 a.m. and just like work it over and over and over until it's okay to post.
You're working really hard. Like this is.
Thank you.
This is like obviously a labor of love, or like you talk about that love ethic. There's typically like this is a bit of a labor of love for you. Do you consider yourself to be a climate change activist?
Yeah, I think now I do. I think it's like, basically I started off as one of my jobs that I did was I was a billiards, which is like 8-ball pool, as a billiards video influencer.
I don't think they call it video influencer.
I don't think they are either, especially when there's like 40 people who watch. It's like you're not influencing a lot,
Yeah.
That was my earlier job, and I love pool. I love to play. It's my favorite thing in the world, and my kind of internal compass is like, let's lock up climate change so I can get back to making pool videos.
Yeah.
It's kind of like where I'm at.
Yeah.
So if being an activist speeds that process up, then sign me up for activist class.
When will you know that you're done? Like, when will your work?
How do you know when you're finished?
Yeah, how do you know when you can go back to making pool videos?
Oh my, I don't.
Is there one big piece of policy that you're looking for? Is there one big shift? Like, when do you say, okay, they got it?
I mean, candidly, it's gonna be my whole life, right? Like it's probably not gonna be. There's not gonna be one big thing that just like changes everything. With how deep and entangled the climate crisis is, how it touches every race, creed, religion, everything, every strata of economics. Wow.
Whoa.
Economics. I've never heard it said out loud. I've only read it. Is that right? Economics?
Yes, economics.
Thank you.
Yeah, you got it.
Alien.
You nailed it. I'm proud of
I
you.
read the Wikipedia page for how to talk like a person and ran out here. Economics. Every economic bracket, tax bracket. It hurts everybody, and it's big and bad, and it's got a $1 trillion industry trying to keep it the way it is. And the status quo is success for these giant corporations. So that's all they need to do is hold the line, and they win. And that's like a pretty nice position for them to be in their heads. And so it's going to be a long way. And I don't know what it would look like to be like, well, that's that, you know? But hopefully it's on the horizon, but who knows?
Okay, so with that, I think we could open it up to some questions if anyone has one. If you have one, we have a couple of mics, so please wait for the mic to come to you because we're online. I see you. But we just want to make sure you're actually talking to a mic when you talk.
Oh,
so.
yeah.
There we go, mic runner right
And
there.
if you don't have a question, we don't have to do a Q&A, you know? I actually do have, if no one has a question, I got some questions for Ron.
There's a question.
Okay, we do have one. Sorry, thought I dodged that.
I was just looking at your channel and I saw you have like 500,000 monthly subscribers and millions of views.
Oh, thank you.
And it's dope. Congrats.
Thank you.
But you were saying there was kind of like that moment where you had a video go viral on Reddit. Pre and post that, like having that audience, does that factor into your decision-making process, like having that platform when you're putting out content? Like, are you thinking about, oh, I'm like talking to a really big crowd now, or do you just kind of stay the line?
I think if you're trying to make content for a demographic, if you're like trying to anticipate what other people will think is funny or good, and you're not doing it for yourself, I think it's a losing battle immediately. You know, if it's like, oh, people love, T-Pain, I'll do a T-Pain joke and this thing, you know, it's like, that's not the way I think to make any successful comedic piece. So I think it's like, it's really nice to have people kind of built in who are hopefully gonna watch the episode and appreciate it. But it really, the only like demo that I'm really thinking of is like, how do I make like a good funny video, and like what is a way to present this information that won't be a waste of time for the people watching it, and like what can I tell people to do at the end if they get inspired by the video that will then allow them to take this into their own hands and complete their own journey with this thing. But that was a great question. And I also love when you said the stats at the top. That was awesome. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Any other questions? We got one over here.
Can you talk, I forgot my question. Can you talk a little bit about how do you make decisions about content? Like, you could talk about so many different things. Like, how do you do your content planning and make decisions? Is it like what's topical right now, what you're most interested in? Sort of how does that flow?
Yeah, we have this like giant Google Doc full of topics that we want to get to eventually. And we just kind of like, all right, we just finished a video and we all took 3 days off because, like it was a huge sprint to the finish. And then we don't really tackle like what the latest thing is, because number one of the things that I like to do with the video is like go back into the historical records and pull up like tax returns and pull up old like internal documents and see if we can like kind of tell a story just visually through existing media. And like new stuff like the train derailment, for instance, in East Palestine. We haven't really done a story on that because number one, it's like a 4 to 6 week turnaround, and number two, there isn't quite the body of information that the way I like to kind of dig into a story. It's an incredibly important story, and I think a lot of people are telling it really, really well. So like I feel fine kind of not trying to bite that off because other people are doing it in a really smart way. So I sort of take I just go to the Google Doc and we want to talk about zoning and redlining and racist zoning practices as it relates to the climate crisis, and so that's the next video we do, and we just work on that. And it's not a great system, but it's worked so far, and we're trying to get multiple videos working at the same time. But we were a 4-person team, but then one of our writers got hired at The Daily Show. So she left, obviously. What if we were like, no, you have to pick? Yeah, no. Daily Show. It's got show in the title. It's on television. No, she's still a contributor. So now we're like a 3-person team, and we're kind of all doing all the different roles. So we find it's easy to sort of vertically integrate every month of doing one topic at a time.
So, how you doing?
Great, how are you?
Good. So, first of all, if the climate thing doesn't work, you definitely have a job in stand-up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That is kind and potentially a little overrating of me. But thank you, I appreciate
I
it.
beg to differ. All right, so I noticed you said that, this climate thing sort of affects what will really affect those who are in poverty, right?
Yeah.
Because, it's not a whole lot of people coming in my neighborhood talking about climate. Besides subscribing and likes and sharing your content, how can we do a better job of assisting you of getting that particular message in my community?
That's a good question. I think one thing that we're hoping to do is like expand the amount of videos that we're able to make. So I mean, if you're like sitting on a check and you're trying to send some money to our YouTube channel, we will hire more people to do videos. So that's if I'm not saying don't donate. If you want to donate to our channel, that'd be awesome. But I think it's probably the best way to do it is I'll give you my information after this, and if you want to maybe send us stories from your neighborhood or wherever you're reading them, or things that are like, oh, this is happening, no one's covering it, and there's a deep history of a systemic version of this problem that keeps popping up. I probably just I either haven't read about it or I haven't heard about it, and we'd love to cover it. So that you can email info@climatetown.tv if you have any leads or any stories like that. Yes, info at, and a little @ sign. How did that get it? Info at climatetown, so all one word, .tv. And the .tv is the Tuvalu, the nation of Tuvalu. That's their.
Can we cut to the editing bay on this one?
Yeah. Wow. No one cared about the .tv thing. And yet you're really belaboring it with this edit bay video.
Let me ask you, do you have videos that already deal with any environmental justice or anything like that now, currently, that we can boost?
Yeah, so the one that I think maybe my favorite one that we've done is about zoning.
Okay.
So and God, I know how, it's a 22-minute video about zoning does not sound like a fun use of your time.
Yeah.
But we collaborated with this great YouTuber who works out of the Netherlands named Not Just Bikes.
Yeah.
And we go back into the history. We pull a lot of maps and we talk about redlining. We talk about We talk about the ways that like single family housing propagated it is so crazy how they wrote down the like, okay, no people from China, no people from, it's like, it was like crazy. They just like actually listed out how straight up racist they were in letting people live in a development.
Yeah.
And I think that was a really eye-opening episode that we did.
This is kind of like off, but like I know I wasn't surprised and was surprised at the same time to see that even climate change was racist. Like, because I was
big
just like,
time.
you'd just be like looking around at anything and just be like, oh, here's some racism. Like, no matter like where you're looking,
Like you're looking under a rock. Oh,
it's like, oh, racism. But were you surprised to find that? Like when you started doing the research for this at Climate Town, was there a part of you that you had like some sort of existential crisis when you're like, here? Because you think it'd be an equalizer, right?
I mean, but it's not,
No,
It's like, you
yeah.
think it'd be an equalizer because it's like, oh, it's global, right? The whole Earth's temperature is rising, so like, let's all figure this out as a group. But like, then it's like, well, no, because the really rich people will just be able to weather this out for basically longer than any of the poor people, and that's their strategy now. And it's like, this is, and everywhere along the line, like it's every single time I open up a new yellowed PDF internal document and I'm like, please don't be racist this time. I've never been right. It's always been racist. It's insane.
Yeah.
So was I surprised? I'm becoming less surprised every time.
Yeah. Other questions from the audience? I got one right up here and one back there.
Do you don't make your thing.
Hey, I do agree that you are hilarious. I've been cracking up the whole time.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I feel like I'm dying up here. That's made me feel really good. Thank you.
So I wanted to ask you, just going back to what you said before about climate change being racist. So what are you doing and how are you utilizing your platform to not be racist or not be racist, but to be anti-racist? Like, what are you doing to make sure that Black and brown folks are in on this as well?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we're working with a handful of groups. We're working with climate change makers. We're working with some DSA groups. And that's one way we're trying to send people into their communities, into your own communities in New York. We're very New York focused, so not a lot of New Yorkers are meeting their neighbors if you're like kind of a transplant from other places. And one thing we're asking people to do is, really get out there and get into your local community, go to actual community meetings, bring friends to your community meetings, and like become a citizen of the city that you live in, meet the people that you live with. And then we're also trying to do stories that center environmental justice. And that comes up pretty regularly. And we try to highlight, anything that we find that is just overtly racist and show how terrible it is as a practice. And basically not enough.
Thank you for saying that last part.
Sorry.
I got one back here.
Can you hear me? There we go. So quick question about the commercialization of all this. I presume this is your job, right? And I don't know anything about how YouTube works, but I'm just wondering if you get to choose whether or not, colasgreat.com gets to advertise on your site, or if there are sort of tricky ethical considerations as you're trying to monetize what is, a great service, I think, but I imagine has some pitfalls to it.
Right, yeah. And it is crazy that Coca-Cola couldn't even get Coca-Cola.com. They had to go to colaisgreat.com. I mean, they should be able to afford that URL. So one thing that you can do, which is nice with YouTube, is you can turn off whatever advertisers you don't want to work with. So we go into the back end and we turn off a whole host of, any kind of automotive, any kind of energy that's not a renewable resource, a lot of fast fashion brands. We have a whole host of things we turn off. But for the most part, we actually make our money through our Patreon page. That's kind of where a lot of our funding comes from. And Patreon is just like a bunch of people being like, do your thing. We're not trying to like influence you in any way. It's $5, $10 a month, that kind of thing. So we find that we're actually able to kind of say and do whatever we want and work on however long on an episode we need to before we release it.
We got one last question.
So one of the things about issues like this is reaching across ideological beliefs. And YouTube is algorithms that serve up content that people already agree with because it keeps them engaged. So how do you think about gaming that in some way so you're reaching people who aren't already on board, so to speak, you know? And I think with I'm a fan of the Center for Humane Technology, which talks about like persuasive tech and how it kind of just keeps reinforcing the same belief systems and driving people apart. So how do you kind of bridge that as a content creator? It's hard. I don't know if you have an answer.
Yeah. Thanks for giving me the out there too at the end. Yeah, I think our main strategy is just to really just try to be as funny as possible, and I think that kind of hopefully can get across some barriers that otherwise maybe we wouldn't be able to get across. But yeah, in terms of like, I kind of don't want to spend a bunch of my time trying to convince somebody of something that they will never be convinced of. And so I try not to like let somebody who thinks that I'm, you know, like a lizard person dictate how I make content, because I'm just trying to like win them over and they're never gonna want to come over to my side. But I also want to leave the door open for that kind of migration. So yeah, I think we just try to be funny. That's kind of our only goal.
Rollie Williams, where can folks find you if they want to learn more?
Oh, you can Google, or actually you go to YouTube. Wow, let me take that again. Great question. YouTube, Climate Town, Climate Space Town. That's our YouTube page. We also have a Patreon page. You can look that up. And we're vaguely on Instagram, but not in a serious way. And also, if you have any leads or any stories or thoughts or questions or suggestions, info@climatetown.tv. DMs are open. Hit us up, and we answer. Ben actually has to answer every single one of those. That's part of his job. But we get to all of them. So we would love to hear from you. Good, bad, other, you know, whatever you guys think. We'd love to hear your thoughts.
Thank you everyone for coming, and thanks for being here.
Thank you so much. Thank you guys. Thank you very much.